So today we're going to be discussing Battlefield 1's November patch. It's been in testing on the CTE for the last few days, with DICE devs conducting timed events to get more player feedback on stability and performance. And they've now released 90% of the changes that we can expect, and there are some good items in this list. It is worth remembering that November will also bring the operations campaigns to the game, and I'll speak about what those are after I've gone through some of the changes in these patch notes. The November patch, first and foremost, doesn't bring much new content in comparison to other patches, but it appears to have been reserved for plenty of bug fixes, changes to in-game functions, and in general it's cleaning up a lot of things. There appears to be one new piece of content, however, and that is the Frontlines game mode coming to another base game map. This time, it's coming to Suez. Now, I covered this in a video a few weeks back, so if you want to go and see what that will be like, then you're more than welcome to go and watch the video. But in short, I think it makes Suez a much more tolerable map to play on overall. Conquest on such a linear map like Suez, and with it being so open with very little cover outside the towns, it can be very frustrating to play. Frontlines, however, concentrates the gameplay onto one flag at a time, and it reduces the player count from 64 to 32 players overall, and I think that massively improves the experience. I'd like to take that reduced player count gameplay experience improvement as evidence that DICE should be implementing 48-man Conquest servers into Battlefield 1. Or at least give us the option in rental servers to have 48-man Conquest servers. However, at this time, it might not be wise to split up the player base across more game mode variants. Maybe 48-man Conquest could be something reintroduced for Battlefield 2018. But moving on to some of these changes and fixes in the patch notes now. Firstly, DICE has switched the standard issue rifle of the Russian and Bolshevik factions to the Mosin Nagant in custom games. This will affect the Back to Basics game mode, where you're only allowed to use the rifle of the faction that you play as. And the last patch changed the standard issue rifle for the Ottomans, so this is the second patch in a row where we're seeing a change to the Back to Basics mode. As both the White Guard and the Red Army, that's the Russian and Bolshevik factions, are Russian, they both get the same rifle. The deploying on dead teammates issue is being plugged in the November patch. I showed you this some time ago, where if you now spawn in on a teammate who dies, as you're swooping down onto the map, the camera will then swoop straight back up again to the spawn screen and you can choose another spawn point. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this design overall, but to be honest, I've only had it happen a couple of times whilst I've been playing on the CTE, where it's been for about 3 weeks now since it was implemented, and I'm no doubt going to get used to it. I just don't think it's the most elegant solution. Either that, or we go back to the Battlefield 4 way, where we have a black screen to spawn into, which I would argue is even worse than this implementation. At least this gives me the option to spawn again, rather than dying straight away. Another change that's being implemented, the gas mask, which every single soldier has access to, will now be automatically applied if you spawn directly into a gas cloud. Say your teammate that you wanted to spawn on is sitting with their mask on in a gas cloud, that will allow you to spawn because they're not taking any damage and therefore they're not in combat. As you spawn, of course, you don't have your gas mask on, and you immediately start taking damage, which isn't ideal. This fix should mean you should stay at 100% health when you spawn into gas until you're shot at by an enemy. Previously, you could have been at 70% health, an enemy comes along and shoots you instantly, and it feels like you've been cheated out of a spawn and you die very, very quickly. It can be quite annoying, and I'm glad that DICE have finally patched it. DICE has also fixed another spawning issue, this time where you sometimes spawn in the air. Perhaps you're spawning on a parachuting teammate, you wouldn't spawn with your parachute deployed, and you might have plunged to the ground, not pulled your parachute quick enough, and died instantly. DICE has now changed it so that when you spawn, if you're spawning in the air free-falling, the parachute will open for you to stop you falling to your death, and if you didn't deploy it fast enough. Of course, if you're close enough to the ground, but far enough away to take 100% damage, that can be a really annoying spawn, so the fact that DICE have fixed it again is a good thing. Next up, we have a change that will likely yield an exasperated cheer from many dedicated players. DICE has finally decided to change the medal system so that all 5 weekly medals will track progress at the same time, as opposed to the old system where only one is tracked in-game and all the others are inactive until you select them. This is something that the community has been asking for since the game launched, basically, and yet again, 12 months later, DICE are here with the fix. Now, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but if a change like this had been made in December or January earlier this year, then perhaps DICE would have gotten a much better reception for that change. But now, I think the impact of it is basically lost. Far less people are playing the game in general, and we can chalk it off as another change that came far too late for most players. I'm happy to see the change, but I'd like to see some more rotation of the medals because it still feels like I'm just getting the same medals week after week. You can still pick one of the 5 medals to track in-game, but all 5 will passively track in the background for you. I'm unsure if the linear steps for each medal have been removed, so you can complete a medal in any order now, but likely when the patch notes drops, this will be formalised, and we should find out soon. A fix for the issue plaguing many players of the game is in the November patch, the globe bug. Now, this is something that happens more frequently on consoles, and it sees people just get stuck looking at the globe in the middle of their screen with nothing else loading. And of course, that's really annoying because you have to close the game, sometimes restart your console completely before the game will boot up properly again. Now, this is a potential fix, meaning DICE feel like they fixed it, but they can't be 100% sure, as there may be other triggers involved that they don't have data for. Hopefully, though, this should stop the issue happening, so you can just log in and play your games. Next, we have a small gadget change for the Scout class. You'll now be able to place down 2 tripwire bombs instead of the previous 1. I think this may be in response to some of the recent specialization changes that negatively affected the bombs, so DICE has compensated for that by allowing you to put down 2 now. And we have a really big change for the Medic class. I seriously think this is going to improve the gameplay of the Medic overall. DICE has now removed the large amounts of smoke that emanate from medic rifles when they're fired. This smoke, if you're firing the rifle quite quickly, could cloud the view of you and your iron sights, and sometimes it could completely obscure the target that you were aiming at. This change now means that medics aiming at targets will keep a much clearer view of what's going on, and that should translate into more shots on target. This change has also been applied to the Rib-A-Rolls carbine and the Shoshar LMG, both of which suffered from very similar problems. This smoke was added as a graphical feature to accurately represent what would have happened if you fired these guns in real life, but that doesn't always translate to a good gaming experience, so it's nice to see DICE scaling that back a bit and putting gameplay first. Now, I've been told that all of these changes, along with various small bug fixes that I didn't mention, will not be the only things coming in the November patch. Of course, we have the Operation Campaigns update, as I mentioned at the start, but there will be a few more changes coming to the vanilla version of Battlefield 1 in November that DICE hasn't detailed yet, so once we get this November patch, I'll round up all of the info again in another video for you. Operation Campaigns are arguably the reason the November patch is so exciting for most players, however. This is going to string different operations together into one large battle, which will only be accessible for a limited time. Now, if you join that campaign and complete it, you'll be handed out some special rewards, I think in the form of battle packs, and if my suspicions are correct, I believe those packs will include some new weapon skins that we saw back on the CTE some months ago now. I believe each pistol in the game will be receiving at least 1 new weapon skin, and some of them will be getting 2 or 3 weapon skins, and you can see all of them now in your inventory. They'll just be locked, so you can't actually access them and apply them to your weapon. This was an update that was rolled out recently via a UI update, so it's interesting to see what these skins are, but how we're getting them I still don't know. I think it might be, though, a reward for playing these Operation Campaigns. And that is the November patch as we know it right now, and it comes 1 month before the first half of the Turning Tides DLC. As I said, once I get more info on those parts of the patch that DICE hasn't detailed yet, I'll bring you another video with all that information. But below in the comments, let me know what you think of this patch overall, and I'll be down there reading as many comments as I can. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.